welcome to SportsBeat Live, our chat about the Kansas City Chiefs that is sponsored by First Federal. We talk about the Chiefs with the folks in the media who know them best and with you. Please send us your questions and comments, and let's talk about the preseason opener that happened today in Chicago. Herbie, I think you have to look at this game a couple ways, maybe use a couple of sets of scores here. One, 14-0 Chiefs. The other, 19-0 Bears. I think the Chiefs' 14-0 score more significant than what the Bears did. Have I got that right?
Yeah, you absolutely have it right. You know, when we entered this week, we knew that the Vegas odds makers had Bears as a 3.5-point favorite. That's because their backups were probably better than the Chiefs' backups. But when you put the starters on the field, what you had there was, like you mentioned, a 7-0 league, a very efficient 11-play drive by Patrick Mahomes. And then, they go up 14-0, and then the backups came in, and obviously that's where the tide turned. So I tend to agree with you.
Yeah. So, they'll have some work to do in St. Joe this week with the third and the fourth team players, but the ones and the twos looked pretty sharp. Jesse, take us through that first possession for the Chiefs, where they actually the first possession on both sides of the ball. They look so good on offense and defense.
Yeah, I think the main takeaway is going to be offense because Mahomes, and we want to all see how this offense is going to interact with each other. And it was fascinating because they ran a bunch of plays under center. They ran a bunch of play action, and Michael Burton was on the field for a bunch of that. So the efficient offense you come to expect from the Chiefs, but doing it in a little bit of a different way. And Andy Reid showing that, they can run the ball out of the I formation. They can do some play action, maybe bring some linebackers up, suck them in, and then throw it down over the tops of them. But a very good first drive for the Chiefs. And you guys already mentioned this, but it was sort of interesting. In Soldier Field here, they were piping in the sound from the post game of the Bears talking, and some of the Bears players seemed really happy to win the game. So it's funny how these exhibition preseason games go, in that like the Bears can seem very happy that they beat the Chiefs when all of us with eyes watching the game could watch that and say, hey, if these were the two real teams playing in there, then we know that the Chiefs would have won this game rather easily.
Yeah, go ahead and celebrate, Chicago. Yeah, go ahead.
No, what I was going to say is to Jesse's point there, when you mentioned some of the 21 personnel, because Michael Burton in there, but they ran 4 consecutive plays with 21 personnel. What I mean, there's 2 running backs and a tight end. That's not something that you expect out of Andy Reid, but it also goes to show you that, we know that they were not specifically game planning for the Bears here, so you want to keep it as simple as possible. And 2 running backs and the tight end, that's about as simple as it can get. That's a throwback to the old days where, compared to now where Andy Reid's going to get all exotic with 3-4 wide receivers spread out all over the field. So he kept it simple today.
Yeah, play action completion to Burton on the first play, the first snap for the Chiefs. And, of course, Burton picked up the first down on the 3rd and 1 around midfield. And I had forgotten the stat. I shouldn't have, because I think, Jesse, you've written about it this year, that Burton had 8 rushing attempts last year and picked up first downs on all 8 of them. He did that again today. So, sort of the last guy I expected to notice on offense was a key contributor early in that first drive. But Patrick Mahomes spread the wealth on that possession, hitting 5 or 6 different receivers and 6. Thank you, Herbie. And just I thought the reception by Marquez Valdez-Scantling was significant. 3rd down catch where Mahomes scrambled, a little bit of a no-look pass from Mahomes. Sam McDowell's joined us. Hey, Sam.
What's up, guys?
Sam, there you go. And then, of course, the touchdown, 5-yard touchdown pass play to Blake Bell. And Herbie, this is a good opportunity for you to update us on the Blake Bell injury. Didn't happen on that play. It happened later in the first half. And if I saw this correctly, it was a non-contact injury.
Yeah, unfortunately, Andy Reid did not address what was going on with Blake Bell after the game during his post-game remarks. I'm sure we're going to have more updates when we get back to St. Joe. But, when you think about if it's a non-contact injury, immediately brought to the sideline, evaluated the tent, and then when you ride the cart into the locker room and you're not in the passenger seat, but you're in the back, that's usually not a good sign. And the Chiefs right now, they do have the depth at the tight end position. They are getting Jody Fortson back, but to lose a guy like Blake Bell, I know when people look at his stats, they're like, hey, he doesn't do much. Well, yes, he does. He is the primary blocker in their Tiger personnel package. So when you think of the 12 personnel package for the Chiefs, it's Travis Kelce and Blake Bell, because Bell is the blocking component.
Yeah, this has the potential to be a significant injury for the Chiefs if they don't have Blake Bell. I know that Noah Gray had he had a nice game and he's had a very nice training camp, but Blake Bell has a pretty significant role in this offense.
We actually did see Blake Bell leaving the locker room. He was walking without any sort of equipment or anything on his body with just a very slight limp. So don't know exactly what the nature of his injury was, but he looked to be not quite as serious as maybe it indicated on the field.
Fingers crossed that is the case. Jack, probably our most loyal audience member. Jack, how you doing? He's asking about Isaiah Pacheco, and I thought Isaiah Pacheco had not only a good game, but I think we learned something a little bit more, or maybe had some ideas confirmed about the running back depth chart, Jesse. After Clyde Edwards-Helaire is the starter, but I think we've gone from, is Isaiah Pacheco going to make the team, to he'll make the team because he's a return specialist, to he might be the number 2 running back now. At least that's the order of competition today.
Yeah, that's what I wrote about today was Pacheco. I was able to catch him in the locker room, talk to a couple other guys, but the story I actually had sort of spoke to exactly what you're saying, Blair. We don't want to make too much of preseason games, but today I think for Pacheco, you kind of have 2 different data points here, which is when he was in and then how he did when he was in. And so when he was in is probably the most significant, which is he was in on the very first possession with the first team offense in the red zone. You don't do that if you don't like the guy, and you don't do that if you think the guy, is your 4th-string running back. So that's number 1 data point. That's probably the most important thing today is you can see it in practices and in training camp, but the fact they threw him out here in the Bears in his debut and they're having him run a flat route on the 10-yard line in the very first possession with Patrick Mahomes, I think that tells you more than anything else. Now, how he looked is also important as well, and he bounced off that tackle in the flat. I want to get this quote from Sky Moore because that was the first thing I asked Sky Moore in the locker room. I was like, hey, what do you think about Pacheco? And here was his quote. He's balling. I feel that he might be the steal of the century. He runs that ball so hard and does his thing. So that was Sky Moore. Very excited to talk about him. I know Michael Burton, I talked as well to him in the locker room about Pacheco, the fullback, who sounds like from talking to Isaiah, he's taking a little bit of a mentorship role for him. And he just says, listen, Isaiah runs the ball hard. Breaking the tackle is what he can do, is that he plays so physical with so much weight behind him and with such power and force that he's able to do that. But he also said that he's a sponge. He wants to take things in, kind of like we've heard about Karlaftis and a lot of these other guys in the rookie class. So I think they're impressed by Isaiah Pacheco. I think the front office is happy with him because they took him late. I think the coaches are happy with him. I think a lot of that was solidified by seeing him out on the field in this very first possession and seeing him in there before guys like Jerick McKinnon and also Ronald Jones.
Hey, to that point, here's something that Andy Reid said after the game, because you mentioned, and this is the exact quote, some of these young guys, they had a chance to play today with the 1s and 2s, are guys that will be asking to play this season. So when he's mentioning the guys who played today with the 1s, obviously Pacheco, so we go back to the question, is he making the team? I think that quote right there says it all. If you were a young guy playing with the 1s and 2s today, the Chiefs are expecting you to contribute this year.
Well, and I don't think we can make too much of the first time Pacheco touched the ball. Jesse alluded to it. The tackle breaking reception, he basically just ran through that. I don't know if it was a linebacker or a cornerback that was up to greet him on that pass in the flat from the 10-yard line. But that was a show of toughness that was a little bit, almost hate to say it, but was a little bit mindful of Kareem Hunt, the way he used to attack defenders. So I thought Isaiah Pacheco, as he has been doing in training camp, made a big statement today, and we will absolutely see him on the team. And that does leave where was Jerick McKinnon today? What we thinking pretty highly of him, and I don't know if he got a rushing attempt, and maybe some special team snaps.
Yeah, I think mostly special teams, Blair. Very limited for him. I think it's sort of fascinating now because I think the conversation has just shifted very quickly here, as you've been talking about, which is once Dave Tobe said that the kick returner is Isaiah Pacheco, once we see Isaiah Pacheco in there with the ones, all of a sudden you start to shift to say, okay, a few weeks ago we would have said, who's going to make the roster out of running backs? You would say Clyde Edwards-Helaire for sure, and then after that, you're not real sure. I would say Pacheco moves up that list. He's going to make the team, and now you're thinking, okay, McKinnon, are they just saving him? He's a veteran. He knows what he's doing, that sort of thing. Or is this a real battle between Ronald Jones and Jerick McKinnon? And I think that it also brings up the thing, I wrote this offseason. I said, hey, this offense could use a Ronald Jones-like back. They could use a guy who can hit that hole, get behind his pads, drive 3 or 4 extra yards, and gain extra yards, which this offense needs running the ball. Pacheco needs to be that guy if they're going to cut Ronald Jones or trade Ronald Jones. And so, that'll be fascinating to track too. I talking with Pacheco, and I think he said this, Patrick Mahomes said this a couple of days ago when he was talking about Pacheco, but I think the question with him right now is Pacheco's really fast and he's really powerful, but does he see the hole? Does he have the vision? Is he patient? Because sometimes those guys, that's kind of what they are. They're kind of a bull in a china shop. You just kind of go forward. You rely on your physicality. You rely on your speed. We saw that ball in the flat. I mean, it didn't take Pacheco wiggling around or finding a hole. He was just out in space, and that was kind of what he's best at. Now the question is going to be, if you get the ball in the backfield out of the I formation or whatever, can you pick the hole? Can you see the vision? Can you see the hole? And then can you burst through? Because Pacheco has the potential to be a one-cut type back like Ronald Jones has been in the past. It's just that Ronald Jones has done it for a longer period of time and has proven that over the course of his NFL career. But right now, again, those are questions to be asked here in the future. But right now, I'd say McKinnon and Jones are the ones danger of not making the team, not Pacheco. He's a guy that's going to be on the roster.
I'm going to disagree with my esteemed colleague there, and I don't think it's a matter of Jones versus McKinnon. I think it's McKinnon. But Jones has slid down the depth chart, or even the unofficial one, but from what we're watching out there in practice, there's a reason why he's been working with the 3s and the 4s, and that's kind of like how we finished the game today. The Chiefs know what they have in McKinnon, so I don't think you need, as Jesse said, it's the veteran preference, or it might be the veteran preference. I agree with that, but when it comes to this roster, I think it's going to be McKinnon over Jones. Pacheco's a bigger version of Jones as well. He's got him, he weighs at 215 pounds compared to Ronald Jones' 270. They're both 5'11". So when you want that power back, but also with the ability to make some cut moves, it's Pacheco.
I'm just saying you got to be right, Herbie, and I'm sure that's going through the Chiefs' mind as well, that, if you're going to put this much on Pacheco's plate, you got to be right, especially when you have another guy in Ronald Jones that's done it before.
Well, one player who did not help his cause today was Derek Gore with the fumble and a drop pass. Just a bad day for him. And this is a guy who's contributed to the Chiefs previously. So tough day for him. We got how about if we switch to the wide receivers? I was going to ask Sam about that, and maybe when he's back he can chime in. But I thought we mentioned the Valdez-Scantling reception on the first on the first possession. I want to talk Sky Moore and that toe drag reception he made, but also let's start with we've gotten this far into the show and have not mentioned who I identified as the KC star of the game, and that is Justin Watson. What a nice game for him. And Sam, pick it up with him and the wide receivers. I think maybe he already solidified a roster spot, but I just feel better about him on the roster now after today's game.
Yeah, I feel like I should pass it to this guy over here who's trying to finish up his work because he's the Justin Watson specialist. I think Justin Watson's on the team. I think when we were out at minicamp, I think we thought that he had a lot to give. But what's interesting is I thought he was going to get on the team because he's a really good special teams guy. I mean, that's what he's kind of been most of his career. And the Chiefs typically keep their 5 and 6 wide receivers or players that can contribute on specials. So if he can be a contributor on offense, I don't see how he's left out of that room, particularly with the fact that Josh Gordon got one snap in the first half tonight. I think Josh Gordon is clearly on the outside of the bubble trying to fight his way back in, and Watson's the inverse. I think a lot would have to go wrong for him not to make this team. He caught balls in traffic too. It wasn't just that he had 5 catches for 45 yards, and it's too bad Vahe is not here because he said that he explained how Shane Buechele actually rerouted him on that touchdown pass with an audible play, which even Patrick Mahomes commented, at the podium that he found pretty interesting. He was telling him in his head, he said, you got to throw the sideline route, and he throws the post instead to Watson for a touchdown. So backup players, but still kind of interesting and deeper level stuff they were even doing out here today.
That's next level stuff for Buechele to do that. And we'll discuss this in a bigger way next week, the Shane Buechele versus Chad Henne competition that may have reared its head today. I thought Shane Buechele actually pretty good. Chiefs offense after Mahomes was pretty mediocre. Their first 6 possessions of the second half, they had 6 yards and 1 first down. And it was just a kind of really sloppy effort by the Chiefs. But I thought Shane Buechele in the second quarter had a very nice quarter. Maybe if nothing else, earned some maybe a little more playing time against the Commanders next week. And look, the Chiefs are going to have to make some kind of decision, put him on the practice squad, or if they don't, then he's subject to be grabbed by another team. And I'm not sure the Chiefs want to lose him. So
that happened to him last year, Blair. I mean, they were certainly nervous about losing him to where they eventually did have to put him on the roster. So obviously they had some sort of intel that told them that another outside team would have been interested in plucking him.
It was the Cardinals. Yeah, it was the Cardinals that expressed interest in Shane.
Okay, let's call it halftime. Take a break here. Hear from First Federal Bank, and when we come back, let's talk about specifically rookies and the defense.
When I bought my first home, I was searching for listings and negotiating all on my own. Now I'm back in the housing market, and I could not imagine doing that again. But then I found First Federal Bank of Kansas City's expert loan advisors at ffbkc.com. They were kind, knowledgeable, and available 24/7. My loan advisor answered my questions and helped me feel confident all the way through closing. I trust First Federal Bank because they understand banking is personal. Apply today for a home loan at ffbkc.com/homes. First Federal Bank of Kansas City. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
We're back on SportsBeat Live talking Chiefs with Jesse Newell, Sam McDowell, and Herbie Teope. And if you listen closely, maybe you can hear Vahe Gregorian tapping away in the background, finishing up his column, which I thought was on George Karlaftis because that's what he was asking about in the post game. But now I'm the intel is such that it's on Justin Watson.
No, I think what did he switch? He was writing on Karlaftis. I think he was just there. I think he just asked if you're gauging that based on what I said. He was just there. What are you writing on? Let's do a mid Facebook Live interview. He's writing on Karlaftis.
Gotcha.
He's writing on Karlaftis.
Looking forward to reading it because there's Vahe Gregorian, even though he doesn't have a name tag.
Just doing Justin Watson.
All right, let's get back on the rails here. But Chris Jones ended the first series with a 3-and-out series with a sack. This was from the team that finished 29th in the NFL in sacks last year. What a good sign. And later in the half, there was George Karlaftis with a sack, which I thought of as this is going to be a Karlaftis type sack. He doesn't bull rush the quarterback or doesn't bull rush the lineman in front of him to get to the quarterback. He kind of chased him down with Simeon and then got to him. So really nice to see Karlaftis with the sack. And Rob asks about about rookies that were impressive. He would go on the list along with players like Pacheco and Sky Moore. I thought George Karlaftis got off to a very, very nice start, and I know that. The person who wrote about him is back finishing up his column. So what did any of you guys take it? What did you see from George, and why was this an encouraging game for him?
Yeah, I was impressed with him before the sack. That bull rush he had that almost knocked Justin Fields over, actually knocked the left tackle into Justin Fields. I think that's more indicative of the type of play we will see from Karlaftis. The other one was a little bit more of a coverage sack, but because of the way he'd been playing for the past couple of drives, I thought it was well earned. Frank Clark actually said, and I think we were all sitting there for Frank Clark, but said that it reminds him of him a little bit. I think that's probably a good thing if he's talking about the first 4 years of Frank Clark, less so if he's talking about these last 2 years of Frank Clark. But I do think he's going to be an effort player. So I do think that sack you saw him get today is going to be, something you'll see him, accomplish a few times.
So as I said earlier, Justin Watson was my player of the game. He beat out in a close vote another Justin, safety Justin Reed, and it wasn't because of what he did on defense. What a special teams moment. I was trying to think. I just can't remember. Herbie, maybe you can. The last time somebody other than Harrison Butker, had a place kick either in the preseason or any time. And really, the person who kicked before that was also on the field, Cairo Santos. But I can't remember the last time somebody other than one of those two guys, had a place kick for the Chiefs. And lo and behold, it's the safety, and he boomed it. An extra point is a 33-yard field goal, and that thing would have been good from another 10 or 15 yards. So, what did Andy say about having Justin Reed on the as a backup or emergency kicker?
Yeah, he actually said you can never have enough of those guys. So, if they do have somebody on the roster if they needed to who can kick. And, Reed has done it before. Here's the fascinating thing about it, because before the game started, normally the first players out there in uniform are Harrison Butker, James Winchester, and Tommy Townsend. And lo and behold, we spot Justin Reed in full uniform while everybody's still going through stretching. Like, what's going on here? Why is he in uniform? But that should have been the hint that he was going to be trying kicks, because shortly after we spotted him, now he's over there lining up trying extra points. Hey, kudos to the guy for being able to nail this, in a game situation, because when they put him under pressure at training camp, he absolutely missed it wide left. But now, when it mattered the most, he can check the box. Hey, it's my bucket list. Like he said, I can check it on my bucket list. But if he's called upon, we know he can do it now.
Yeah, I thought that was a good point. You can't because of the roster size, you can't keep an extra kicker. Nobody can ever keep an extra kicker. But now we know who the emergency kicker is for the Chiefs. I wonder who the emergency punter is, by the way. They never tell you. I've always asked every year who the emergency punter was. They never tell you who it is. It was Kelsey, I think, one year. Kelsey may have been the emergency punter. But anyway, so yeah, nice moment for Justin Reed, and it was the extra point after the second touchdown that made it 14-0, and he'll go in the books as a extra point scoring safety for the Chiefs. All right. What about defense as a whole? Who stood out? Who had an opportunity to make a play? The Chiefs did not get a takeaway in this game. They gave it up with the Derek Orr fumble. Didn't get a takeaway. Did Trent McDuffie, any of the rookie, Joshua Williams, Trent McDuffie? We talked about Karlaftis. Brian Cook, any of the rookies on defense make an impression to you, Jesse?
Yeah. First off, I know their emergency punter, the Chiefs. His name is Go For It. That's the Chiefs emergency punter. It probably should be basically the emergency punter every single game with the offense that they have.
I think he's European. I think it's Go For It.
Go For It. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, however you pronounce it, that's the emergency punter for the Chiefs. I thought. So again, this is sort of like a Andy Reid cop out. It's like you kind of want to watch the tape and go back and individualize and focus really in on some of these guys. I would say Joshua Williams, I thought, he started in their nickel. They started with a nickel out there, which means an extra defensive back. There was one play where the Chicago Bears receiver came down with a one-handed catch over the top of him where Joshua made a play on the ball and kind of undersold it a little bit. But I thought in general his coverage was pretty good. And again, we all expect Rashad Fenton to be back and ready. He just came back to practice this week. Had a good year for the Chiefs last year, but to have some depth at that position and potentially a guy from the fourth round, Joshua Williams, be able to emerge and step up, that's a position where you want to have more bodies rather than less bodies. So I thought he yellow zone just fine, again, on first watch of the tape, if you will, or in live time. Leo Chanel made some plays. I think with the second and third unit, obviously he's a guy that's going to have to work in coverage. That's not something he was asked to do much at Wisconsin. He can fill a run blitz. He can go in there and hit somebody, but when it comes to some of those assignments, that's going to be a little bit of a work in progress. And I think the earlier question was who are the rookies that haven't lived up to their practice hype. I think basically what we saw today is kind of guys living up to their hype. Pacheco was good. Sky Moore out there was pretty good. And then some of these guys that have fallen behind a little bit, Leo Chanel made some tackles, but we saw some parts of his game he still needs to add to. And Darren Kennard was with the third team too. So he's kind of been one of those rookies that hasn't been the guy that's emerged like some of the other ones out there. Again, we'll watch and know more about Jalen Watson as they go. He's had some first team reps. He was in there early and seemed like a couple of coverage breakdowns, whether it was him or the safety he was working with in there. But I'd say all in all, if they get a couple of these guys out there that are working out really well, we saw Brian Cook with a big hit from the safety spot, and then Joshua Williams with some tight coverage. If both those guys work out, along with the Karloftises and the Pachecos and the Sky Moores of the world, this is going to be a crazy good rookie class for the Chiefs.
Brian Cook also had that punt coverage, that open field tackle in the punt coverage, which was outstanding, just outstanding. And I think the Bears actually blocked in the back on that and got another 10 yards tacked on to the field position to the Chiefs' advantage. But I was really impressed with Cook, and he's somebody we haven't talked a lot about in our daily shows from training camp. But I'm kind of stoked about him. I think he can. I think he can be a pretty big contributor to this team.
Yeah, one of those, Jesse or Herbie, you might be able to remind me better, but we were talking to somebody at camp, a rookie, that mentioned that Cook was the guy he was learning from. And it's like, well, he's also a rookie on this team. So it just tells you his intelligence level. I know one of the reasons they drafted Brian Cook was they thought he was an extremely intelligent player. So I think he's going to be around for a while because of that. I mean, when you look at the class as a whole, I don't know that we're going to see Pro Bowlers or all pro players out of this class, but I think we're going to see really steady and long-term contributors out of it, and a lot of them. And I think based on where guys were playing, I mean, Jesse mentioned this earlier, but the intel you get from these preseason games are who are guys playing with. And that gives you the best indication of whether they might make the team, the amount of time they'll play. And, Herbie mentioned this earlier, but there's guys that are going to play that are rookies on this team. And like I said, they may not turn out to be Creed Humphrey all-pro type players, but I do think they're going to be guys that have an impact immediately here.
But think about this, Sam. I mean, just the guys we mentioned, like let's just even do the cutoff. Think about their defense. If Joshua Williams is a steady player, if McDuffie is who they think he is, if Karloftis is even a shade of what he showed today, and if Brian Cook can be a steady, solid contributor, you add that to Nick Bolton, super young. You add that to Willie Gay, super young. I mean, all of a sudden, you've got more than half of a defense in position for multiple years that is young and fast and cheap and can go along with Mahomes. I mean, that's really the nice start for something on the defensive end, especially when we know offensively there's always going to be the Mahomes contract. Again, he's worth every penny of that, but it's still going to be a little bit on the salary cap. So again, if you hit on drafts like this and make it work and those guys contribute, man, I mean, it's sort of like in baseball. If you hit on one draft and all those guys come up together and are all cheap together and all winning together, it can be a huge boon for the future success. So that to me has been the main story of training camp, is if they hit on that many guys, 4 or 5, even if they're not all pro, even if they are just steady contributors, that's a huge, huge deal, especially when it comes to salary cap and future ramifications.
Yeah, I'd add L'Jarius Sneed to that list as well. And you're right, to have all these guys on their rookie contracts contributing and playing, at or above league average, if it turns out that way, that is an enormous advantage to the Chiefs. Has the potential to be anyway, enormous advantage to the Chiefs. So, and it'll allow us to look back at the Tyreek Hill trade and some other moves the Chiefs made and say, yep, they knew what they were doing. So, all right, you guys, really enjoyed the conversation as always, and we'll do it again a week from today, only a couple hours later, because the Chiefs and the Washington Commanders kick off at 3 p.m. at Arrowhead Stadium Saturday. So somewhere between 6:30 and 7 o'clock next week, we'll do this. But before then, We will be coming at you from training camp. Only 4 more days in St. Joe Mo. So that'll make Herbie and Jesse happy, and Sam, who just drops in, like Sam and Vahe, just drop in when they feel like it. It'll be good to have them up there this week as well. So for Herbie, Sam, and Jesse, and let me hear, is Vahe still typing? I think Vahe's still typing. And for our producer, Todd Feedback, thank you for watching. Watch us this week and next Saturday as well. So for First Federal, this has been SportsBeat Live. We're out of here.